right, real quick, we're getting to the second half of the day, but there's still some awesome stuff that's coming up. Not just only do we have panels coming up, costume contest right here on this main stage at 5 o'clock, but before that, at 3:45 on the main stage, 3:45, if you guys were here last night, you saw that Corey Taylor from Slipknot and Stone Sour played an acoustic set. That guitar he played was bought for this show, signed by Corey Taylor. If you go over to the Spookala merch area, they're selling $20 raffle tickets. Somebody is leaving today with Corey Taylor's guitar that he played one time only here at Spookala. So if you go over to the Spookala merch area, buy yourself a raffle ticket, you could be that very person to leave with Corey Taylor's guitar. The drawing will be right here at 3:45 after Pico Hughes' panel. Be here, you gotta be present to win it. Be here at 3:45, we're gonna see who's gonna walk out of this building with Corey Taylor's Spookala exclusive acoustic guitar. How cool is that? You guys think that's an awesome thought? I think that's great, But you know what else I think is awesome? Our very next guest who's coming to the stage right now. She plays one of the coolest parts that I've ever seen on television, but you know what? We're gonna wait till she comes up here to talk about it. Everybody, give a big round of applause for the one and the only Miss Naomi Grossman! Right, they got walkout music and everything.
Love it. Hi. Ooh, these are live mics. Okay.
They gotta be. Well, remember we had Wrinkles the Clown up here earlier, and he was talking through the mask.
Okay.
You know all about having to
do.
wear prosthetics?
That's right.
Yeah. So, quick question. How many people have never seen Naomi Grossman outside of American Horror Story? Raise your hand. Is this shocking or what? Not saying she is a shocking looking individual, just saying what they did to make her into her character on the show is unbelievable. I can't even believe it. But you know what? I don't want to go too far ahead because that's stuff for you to talk about.
Okay.
So for those of you who don't know who this individual is beside me, why don't you tell them what your claim to fame is and why you're here at Spookala?
Sure. Well, so they know. We've been signing autographs all weekend, but so yeah, Pepper, of course, was the first crossover character on American Horror Story. Definitely looks nothing like me. Well, maybe a little bit this morning. But it was a big makeup job, about 2.5 to 3 hours. It consisted of a prosthetic nose, brow, ears, arms. For Freak Show, in the first episode, there was the freak orgy. We're not all adults here. Oops. Anyway, they actually gave me like man boobs, like a full-on sort of like chest. So that makeup actually took a full 6 hours maybe. People are always like, I could never do that. I'm like, really? You couldn't just go to your job and sit back and close your eyes and shut your mouth for a couple hours? Like, really? That's easy. I don't know how you do your job. Actually keep your eyes open at work. I couldn't do that.
So when you were auditioning for the part, how much did you know beforehand of what your part was going to entail, and how much of it did they kind of just little by little kind of tell you, here's what it's really going to entail if you want this part?
I knew absolutely nothing. The breakdown, that's basically the electronic thing that goes out to all agents and managers in Hollywood and some actors. I don't know how they get it, but they do. Basically, which production puts out saying, "Oh, this is what American Horror Story is seeking," and it read something like 4 to 5 feet tall, possibly malformed, childlike actress. So pretty vague. I am 5 feet of fun, so I was just barely. The right size. I one more inch I would have been out. But it's malformed. I can't. I'm not. What am I? childlike. So I knew not to wear some voluptuous neckline or booty shorts. So I knew to kind of there's things you can do to kind of accentuate certain things, but that's all I had. Like they made no mention of like microcephalic or pinhead or any of that. Sorry. So the audition itself consisted of a monologue of Jessica Lange's from season 1. Which had nothing to do with anything, of course. I actually, when I got the sides, I called a good friend of mine who watches a lot of TV and asked him, like, what is this? What's the show? And he told me all about the murder house. Of course, helped me zero amount, because they have nothing to do with each other. Then I also had to do a second part, which was actually an improv. They gave me a ball, and they tried to get me to play with them as if I were like a small child, which again, I was like, what is this? Like, first I'm like monologuing, then I'm like, I'm a 4-year-old, really? Because, I come from the theater where like, I'm 47, like I could be cast as a 4-year-old, why not? Like the audience is like millions of feet away, like they won't know any difference. But in film and television, like if they need a 4-year-old, they'll cast a 4-year-old. You know what I mean? Like I have a much narrower age range, in film and television. So it was a little like, what are they doing? And so it wasn't until really the callback where they actually took a bunch of photos of me, which they later manipulated to see what I would look like as the character, and that's really how they cast it. Like there's actually a guy, his name is Mikey Hill, and I really I owe him my career, because he was the one who sat there with Ryan Murphy and said, I like that lady, I like her. It's really like the bridge of my nose, they brought back a bunch of actresses that they knew could handle the demands of the role, but at the end of the day, like, I look best. And I always remind myself that when I'm, driving home from an audition, invariably, like, you gotta figure half the people on the road in Hollywood are like, flagellating themselves after an audition, like, oh, it sucked, why didn't I should have said it this way, oh, I planned to do it that way. And sure enough, that was me, like, oh, I wish I had. And as it turns out, it really came down to like the bridge of my nose. They just liked how I looked best. And I always have to remind myself, like, sometimes it's not personal, if you look like the director's ex-wife, it doesn't matter. You could be Meryl Streep and you're not getting the part, so it's a good lesson.
So was there
I answered all the questions, except for probably the question.
Oh, it's okay, that's great. They want to hear from you, and I'm sure that they love that. So as they go through the process of saying, hey, we want you for the part, at what part did they start peeling back the layers of the onion and be like, oh, we're going to do this to your forehead, and oh, we might need you to shave your head? Was there any point along that line where you're like, okay, this is too much, I'm not really sure I want this part? Or was that all like a part you're like, this is great, I get to play the craziest looking character I've ever,
More the latter. I mean, don't get me wrong, listen, this is not my first rodeo. I actually got my SAG card on my 15th birthday, which was a long time ago. But, I went 22 years struggling in Hollywood without really having any kind of mainstream success. So when they called me and they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna kill off Adam Levine in the first 5 minutes, but you're gonna, be back for a second season. And I'm like, what? Like, am I being punked? Like, is Ashton Kutcher in the bushes? Like, what's happening right now? Like, because I figured I was just one of like an army of pinheads. In any case, as it turns out, yeah, slowly they peeled the onion. That's a good analogy. I basically had probably 6 or 7 like makeup tests where they would try one thing and they nix that. Like at one point, for a while, they actually would give me a bald cap. But because I'm telling you, Horror Story is so good at what they do. I mean, they deserve every Emmy they win. Those makeup people, they weren't okay with just, people always say, like, why'd you have to shave your head? Why don't you just put on a, swim cap and spackle it? Like, I'm like, no, this is not that. Like, if they had gone that route, had I been like you know, Sofia Vergara or something, you know what I mean, with this like amazing hair that's worth $1 bazillion, they might have, well, first of all, they would never get rid of that role, but I digress. Since it was me, or rather, if it had been like a really high profile actress, you know, with $1 million hair, they might have given her a ball cap, but that ball cap would have literally had every single hair sewn in, okay? They're not gonna waste that kind of money on me. I'm just saying, like, my makeup actually costs more than me, you know what I mean? So, in any case, it was cheaper for them to, you know, pay me off to shave my head, which I ultimately did, than go to all that kind of trouble. Although they did go to that kind of trouble for, let's say, my brows and my boobs, in the, you know, because, you know, Pepper's got a hairy chest. You can go back to the freak orgy in season 1, or sorry, in season 4, episode 1, and see it. I'll never forget, actually, on that episode, I was, you know, I wandered out, you know, and I'm essentially dressed, you know what I mean? I'm wearing this giant, you know, chest that weighs 30 pounds. And I mean, I'm wearing more than I would wear at the beach, easy. And one of the producers was like, stop, somebody, get Pepper a robe. You know, it's like as if I was naked. I was like, please, like, you think I look like this? No, thankfully no.
All right, so if you guys have any questions throughout the panel, again, raise your hand and we'll get to you as soon as we can. Otherwise, she and I are just gonna have a cool conversation just hanging out up here. So is there any questions to start off in the panel you guys wanna ask her? Back row, what you got? Make sure you scream really loud. And I love the fact that you've got some steampunk goggles on. My kind of person. Let her go. Say something really loud. What's your question?
What did you do to get into character?
What did I do to get into character?
Yeah, what did you do to get into character?
So, you know, everyone has their own process. I tend to go from the outside in. So I just happen to be a very physical actress. I mean, you can tell even just looking at me. I come from comedy. I used to do comedy at the Groundlings Theater, which is an improv sketch comedy theater in LA, where a lot of big comedians have come out of there. Like, for a while, it was sort of this SNL factory. So, like, Melissa McCarthy, Will Ferrell, Lisa Kudrow, I mean, Kristen Wiig, you name it, they all came out of there. And I was there for quite a while. And so consequently, and we do these huge characters, you know, like Pat, or, you know, the Coneheads, or, you know, that kind of thing. And so that's my training, right? And so I come from, like, let's figure out, like, how she walks and talks. And I kind of, it was actually the makeup people while we're peeling out the onion, they're like, look, you're gonna look like this, so you're probably gonna act like that. And that's when they introduced me to Schlitzie, who was, of course, the real-life microcephalic after whom the character was based. So I rented Freaks, which is, of course, the film that he starred in from 1933, watched it on a loop all summer long. I think I might still have the movie. Sorry, Blockbuster, you're out of business. Where am I going to take it now? Yeah, I mean, I watched that, and so I really kind of nailed his walk and talk and gait and gestures and, you know, all of the outlet exterior first, and then I actually worked with a coach, and the two of us kind of created a little backstory for Pepper, which of course no one knows. Like, literally, I will never tell a soul, mostly because it's way lamer than the actual story that the show, you know, endowed me with later. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong, I had to go 2 whole seasons before I even knew what that story was. But, you know, what's important is, as an actor, that I have a story. Whether or not you know what it is, doesn't matter. Just like I don't know your story. You know what I mean? You have a story, I have a story, he's got a story. We all have a story, but we don't necessarily know what they are. But as an actor, you know, you watching me on television, I need to have one. You know, whether or not it's revealed to you or not is neither here nor there. And hopefully it will be revealed, and eventually it was, 2 seasons later.
You covered a lot of ground there that I want to make sure that we come back and touch on. So you started off with the Groundlings, and you had some huge, huge actors that went on to do big things. Did you ever go, well, why are they on Saturday Night Live and not me? Did you really want to get on Saturday Night Live? I mean, what was the, you know...
Yes, that was like the constant, like, in my ear. It's like the little devil, like, why is she getting... but yeah, I mean, they weren't all there while I was there, but yes, Kristen Wiig was, Melissa McCarthy was. In fact, I remember watching Melissa, like, to a crowd of, like, pretty much, like, this big. Oh my God, I didn't realize there were people over here. But, like, this many people, and she's just, like, literally the funniest person on the planet. And I'm like, how? Like, if she is acting to, 50 people in the crowd, like, if she's not on SNL, then no one should be on SNL. Like, I have no business even wanting SNL. And, it was like a really thorn in my side for a long time that I wasn't on SNL. And I finally just kind of got over it. And, I mean, at this point, maybe I'll be a host someday. But I do believe for the longest time I was so just driven, and I was like, SNL or bust. And I think ultimately there were so many other opportunities that were right there, and I didn't even allow myself to see them because I was so focused. And I think instead of being so like, I'm a comedy girl, I needed to think, no, I'm a character girl. And guess what? Characters exist in all genres, right? And I think honestly there's a really cool relationship between horror and comedy. Not only have we seen a million, like Shaun of the Dead, like there's so many great horror comedies, but also, I mean, let's face it, comedy and horror both lend themselves to these huge characters. So here I was thinking I belong on SNL when really I belonged on AHS. Like, Pepper could totally have been on SNL, you know what I mean? Like, when you think about it, couldn't she have been like in the front seat with Toonces the cat? Like, wouldn't that have been great?
Well, one of the things I would say too is, I think, and this is just my opinion, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, you being able to have Pepper in American Horror Story, you got to be able to be a more authentic, respectful version of the character than if it was on Saturday Night Live.
Toonces the cat. Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And, again, as an actor, it's up to you to kind of understand the tone of the show you're on and dial it up or down. So had she been on with Toonces in the car, it would have been an amped up version where obviously, that episode, the Orphans episode, the Pepisode, if you will, that was time for me to really get subtle with it. That was so. But I'll never forget, there were a million times that I would see the producers and they'd be like, you're hilarious in tonight's episode. And I'm like, it's not a comedy? Like, thank you? I don't even know what to do with that. And there were totally lines that got cut because they were so funny that, like, the whole crew was laughing. And they're like, well, no, we can't have the audience, like, if the crew's laughing, the audience is definitely laughing. Like, if you remember when I'm delivering the baby, I pop up from between Grace's legs and I say, she's crowning. You remember that part. Well, what you don't remember, because it got cut, is I said, when I crowned, I shot out like a bullet. Which is ridiculous. Like, like Pepper would, you know what I mean? Like, she has an aerodynamic head, Anyway, it was funny. But it's cool, I mean, Ryan Murphy himself said, like, Pepper is a pure, like, comic delight. And that's so cool. Like, I think that's part of what is so fun about this show is that it's so dramatic. I mean, you've got, like, Jessica Lange and, like, Kathy Bates and these, like, heavy-hitting, like, legends. And then you've got, all of a sudden we're, like, singing and dancing to the name game. And, like, it's so fun and out there and just well done. Like, everything, there is nothing. Like I said, the wig cap is a perfect example. They're not just phoning that in. You don't just speckle a swimming cap. You know what I mean? They're sewing every little strand in. So, and that's how they do every single thing about this show. it's everything is meticulous, and it shows.
All right, so let's go back to the audience before we continue. You guys have any questions out there? All right, in the front row over here, what you got? Just speak real loud for me.
What was your biggest transition from theater to film?
What was your biggest transition from theater to film?
I mean, I was doing both very much simultaneously. I'm originally from Denver, Colorado, where I was, I got involved with anything and everything. I was a kid, so I was doing children's theater. There was this little company called Kid Skits, and we'd sing and dance and act, every Saturday morning at this comedy club actually in Denver. I felt like I was very adult, There were like comedians at night, and then kids would come in the day. I did like regional commercials and Father Dowling mysteries, and I'm totally dating myself now, but anything that kind of came through that area, which wasn't a whole lot, but I did them in tandem. From there, I went to Chicago. I was a theater major at Northwestern, where I really didn't pursue film and television because that's not what theater majors did. Like, now I realize that was actually really stupid of me. Like, I needed to have been rubbing elbows with the film guys, but instead I was doing theater. It's funny, Seth Meyers was a year ahead. Josh Myers, his younger brother, was a year below. Catherine Hahn, you guys know her, movie star now. Zach Braff was in my class. So yeah, I was, there were some, good actors around, but for whatever reason, I was all about theater there. And then, from there, most of my class all moved to New York because, we're thespians, we're real artists. And I, of course, was like, no, I don't want to starve. Like, I don't want to be a starving artist. That sounds horrible. Like, I'm hungry. I need to eat. I want to be on TV. And I did. I always wanted to be on television, even before it was hip. Not only that, I also had a boyfriend who, he was my RA. So scandalous, but he graduated a couple of years ahead of me and he was a PA on Friends, which at the time, like, he was getting Jennifer Aniston coffee essentially, but in my mind at that time, that was basically you've made it in Hollywood, you know what I mean? So I was like, oh, well, I gotta go to Hollywood, like I'm this close to being a friend for that,
You're a friend of a friend.
I'm a friend of a friend, exactly. Of course, I got to LA and he dumped me immediately, and I was friendless. But I made my way, and but it was a long time. I auditioned for a long time without really. Hollywood come and knock it, and for that matter, they never really did. Like, I really did kind of make my way. I have a couple one-woman shows at the table, which I wrote and produced in the interim between, moving to Hollywood and Horror Story knocking. As well, both of those went on to get I was nominated for an LA Weekly Theater Award. I went to Edinburgh Fringe Festival. They were transferred to the West End in London. I did them in New York. Like, I had a life, but again, it's still theater, so we don't hear all about it. You know what I mean? You're still limited to the 99 seats or whatever, as opposed to television, which is however many million are tuning in that night. So in addition to those, I also, like I said, I was at the Groundlings. I did that for a long time. A lot of my stuff from the Groundlings, I actually ended up putting up on YouTube, so you can see that. So, in a way, I was a kind of autodidact. Like, I sort of self-taught, like, okay, nobody's casting me, so I'm gonna cast myself. And so, yeah, at the end of the day, my reel, a reel is sort of clips of an actor in their doing their work. For the longest time, my reel was just stuff that I'd made myself, you know, because I wouldn't have anything else otherwise. And you know, slowly I've been able to take that off. Like, I remember the day I finally struck Father Dowling Mysteries from my resume. It was like a great day. I was like, good. The stupid thing I did when I was 15 years old got to go, you know. But, so yeah, I don't know if that really answers your question, but I really was doing them in tandem, and even then, my heart really is in the theater. Like, you can tell I'm acting to the back row, you know, and honestly, the Pepper makeup was a wonderful gift to me because I had to act to the back row. Like, if it weren't, you know, had I been some, you know, Botoxed Hollywood type, you know, whose face doesn't move, like, how would I possibly penetrate all that, you know, prosthetics and give her life? So, you know, I think I had to be that big, that expressive, an actress in order to, you know, really, like, give her life. But it is something I struggle myself with. When I'm auditioning, I've got 2 tomorrow, I'll be editing 1 on the plane today, I have to consciously monitor, like, okay, you do not have Botox, you have to, like, control your face, like, don't move, like, you know, Judi Dench style, like, just do nothing, because the camera is right there. You don't have to do anything. Unlike theater, where you have to do everything.
So was there ever a point, all these people that you were friends with at the Groundlings, did they ever, like, come full circle, come back to you and go, I really wish I could have a really intense, dramatic role like you, all I've ever done is comedy?
Yeah, you know, I try to be really nice and never talk SHIT about anybody, but there was a certain director there who literally, I quit acting for an entire year because of this lady. She was just awful. She was really just killed my soul. And she came to me after, so I basically quit acting. I went and I was like, all right, I'm gonna get a boyfriend, I'm gonna get a job, I'm gonna do all these things that I've been denying myself because I thought I was supposed to be, you know, an actress. So I did all that, and then, well, I quit the boyfriend because better off without. But I couldn't quit the job because, you know, I needed to pay rent. But I got back into acting, and that's when, you know, yeah, eventually Horror Story happened for me, and I've seen her since. I've seen her at commercial auditions, and she's always like, why are you even here? Like, what, you, commercial, really? Or why? And part of me is, yes, you know, I'm like, suck it. You know, I want to say her name so bad, but you know, like, yeah, you're right. I don't need to be here. I could just be a like TV star. You're right. You probably need this more than me. Take it, yours, mic drop. But you know, at the same time, I'm competitive, and so I'm like, no, I'm gonna get this. Like, you know.
So let's wheel back to American Horror Story a little bit.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to get used to owning the baldness that you had? Did you ever have people come to you and say that you were inspirational, not just for being okay with going bald, but also being okay with portraying the type of character that you portrayed?
Okay.
That's a lot of questions there for you.
Okay, I got a lot of answer. You know me now. For Asylum, which of course came first, they actually shaved everything but that little piece. So I can't say that I really like owned the bald yet. They got me a little wig. It was a very expensive wig. They definitely took care of that. So when I wasn't, you know, working as Pepper, I wore this little, you know, bob. It was like basically the Naomi. The same way I looked every other day of the year. You know, now I just had a great hair day, like every day. The only days it became a problem was like if I was on a date, and you know how it is, ladies, when you're like in a hot tub and they go to touch your hair and you're like, this is a win. Like, don't touch that. Like, this is not gonna end well. So yeah, there were a few dates that ended real early, like awkwardly. So no, I was, don't get me wrong, every now and then at yoga, you know, I wouldn't wear a wig to yoga, so I would have like a head, like a scarf or something, and somebody'd see me in the locker room later, like, oh, you're that girl, you know, because the show was on at the time, and so it was a thing. But I really didn't let anybody see that. Like, the thing is, I had to be secretive for a really long time. Like, this show is very secretive, as you all know. And so once I was cast, like, and again, I had a day job. I was a Spanish teacher on the side. So I couldn't exactly go to my students and be like, hey y'all, buenos dias chicos. Like, it's, you know, all of a sudden, like, your profesora with her little, like, bob decided to go full Hare Krishna, you know, like, what's that about, you know? And besides, they all knew I was an actress, so they knew I wouldn't just do that. They knew there'd always, you know, there'd be a reason. So, in any case, for Asylum, I kept it on the DL. No one knew. It wasn't until after kind of I was wrapped. Oh, that's the other thing. When, you know, Pepper goes pee, I want to say in like episode 3, and everyone's like, where did Pepper go? Like, I didn't even know, because we're shooting the show as you guys are watching. We're literally like 4 or 5 episodes ahead. So when they're, you know, all my friends are like, oh, what would happen to Pepper? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not supposed to cut my hair, so that's a good sign. Like, I don't know, maybe I fell in. Like, long BM, I don't know. Like, but so I was really thankful when I came back. But when they did say, okay, you're, you know, season wrap on Pepper, I was allowed to cut my hair. And I did, at that point, I did go ahead and like lose the wig and just rock a really short little haircut for a while until it grew just to a comfortable point, and then they called me again and they said, you're back as Pepper for Freak Show. Now for Freak Show, they actually did shave it all, and I was totally cool with that, let me tell you. First of all, we were on location in New Orleans, which in July, well, you guys know, you're in Florida. It's, yeah. So I was not trying to put anything on my body I didn't absolutely have to have, including a wig for sure. So, but they, I think also it was, you know, Salty actually looked like that. So he was a bald dude with big ears, and so I think out of courtesy, because he got to just be like normal, they just let me, they shaved my head, and they actually had a little piece that they put on every day, and that was nice. And yeah, honestly, like at that point, that's when like you said, I really did kind of like just embrace it. And I mean, again, I was on the DL. No one could know that Pepper was back, and so I would be, you know, wandering around New Orleans in the French Quarter, and invariably I'd get recognized and, oh, can we take your picture? And I was like, yeah, but like, can you wait to post? Like, I don't, you know, I was off social media. I was like, no one can know that I'm here. It wasn't until kind of our premiere that I was able to like, oh, Pepper's back. Like, and I remember going to that premiere with this, well, naked dress essentially, and I rocked the bald head. And I remember my manager at the time like, oh my God, you're gonna look like Pepper. I'm like, beat please. Like, it takes 3 hours for me to look like Pepper. Like, I'm gonna look fine. And I did. I rocked that carpet, and I was #1 on IMDb because of it. It worked for me.
So I got a question for you guys out there. Could she absolutely kill it as a star girl on Saturday Night Live, or what? I'm like, she has got so much personality, I mean, in the nicest way possible. Talk about, she could be like, she could have this list. Here's my characters that I could play on Saturday Night Live and kill them all.
I mean, is Lauren Michaels here? Are you listening?
Somebody better put that clip. The guy right there, you better put that clip on YouTube so we can tag him in it.
I'm sure he's trolling YouTube looking.
All right, anybody else have any questions out there? Back row, what you got? Stand it up. Yeah, you. Yeah, you. Yes, you.
I'm a vendor, so I don't really have much time, and the only thing I want to say is, well, you can't play with me. Can I get
sweet.
That's all. I'm sorry.
No, very
This
sweet.
is my only free time today.
Thank you, here.
I was gonna say, it's inspired by you.
That's
By the way, while Naomi's up, take a look at these shoes that she has on. Coolest shoes in the building. I thought that I had a pretty crazy outfit on today. I saw those shoes and I was like, wow, those are some awesome shoes. They actually have horse heads on the bottom of them.
I forgot. I didn't even remember we would be at the equestrian center.
Yeah. She's at the equestrian center and there's actual real horse heads. They actually, no, just kidding.
They're
Just kidding.
unicorns, but yeah,
Real unicorn heads on
real
her shoes.
horses with horns.
All right, you guys have any other questions? Right here, what you got? Oh my, one of my favorite question people right here.
Okay.
Oh, it's a boring one though. What's your favorite season? And what's your favorite scene with Pepper?
Okay, as a spectator or as a participant? As a participant, definitely Freak Show. Because, working on location is very special. Like, again, I got to quit that day job. Like, adios, Beverly Hills Lingual Institute. And so you're literally like flown off to just be Pepper for 6 months, and that was really special. Unlike, again, Asylum, like I'm like at Paramount Pictures halftime, and then I, clock out, go back to the Beverly Hills Lingual Institute. Like it was kind of like, okay, like crazy. So I liked being on location. We were all living together basically in this like freak dorm, Dandy's cooking tonight. Oh, Amazon Eve's having a birthday. Like that was really special. We would actually gather, if you can imagine, all the freaks on Wednesday nights when the show would come out. We go to this clothing optional country club. I kid you not. They hooked us up with drinks, as you can imagine, and we would watch the episode. Sometimes wearing clothes, sometimes not. And it was awesome. Exactly. That's just a unique experience of being all together on. I mean, it was also just such a special group. I mean, listen, you got people like, Jessica, who's won, Oscars, and Kathy, Sarah, who's about to win Emmys, and then you've got people like, Rose Siggins, who before Freak Show was an auto mechanic, like who literally, she was born without legs, and so working under cars on a roller, on a skateboard, rolling up and down, underneath cars, it was like the perfect job for her, although she was a great TV star too. So you got that, this like amazing juxtaposition, like all these people like you'd never put together in this like weird freak show of like cast, and so it was just it was a special time. Besides, well, I'm sorry Los Angeles, but you're not nearly as cool as New Orleans. Like, I live in LA and I can say, like, objectively, NOLA's kills it. Also, my role was so much better. I mean, it just was. So yes, I prefer Freak Show. Also the humanity of it. I love that aspect too. As a spectator, I think Murder House. Because I wasn't involved yet. That's the only season that I watch where I can't imagine the guy with the Starbucks cup and the, boom mic standing 1 foot off the screen. You know what I mean? Like when I see the show, I can kind of imagine what it looks like on the sides, And so, now I know how the sausage is made. I see the bells and whistles, whereas that season scared me. Like I wasn't involved yet, so I was able to watch just like average Joe. So, and besides, I have a haunted house. No, I'm serious. I live in a haunted condo. Haunted condo. It's even better than a haunted house, really.
I think you need to go talk to Felissa Rose because that sounds like her next movie.
Right.
Haunted condo.
But, so I kind of have a thing for ghosts. I mean, he and I are good. Peter he's so cool. He's a friendly ghost.
Friend of Casper.
No, he's literally, you guys think I'm making this up. I live in the last residence of actor Peter Lawford, who was, he was a member of the Rat Pack. He was he introduced Marilyn Monroe to JFK. He was married to Pat Kennedy. Or I'm sorry, yes, he was married to Pat Kennedy. So he was a Kennedy, he was in the Rat Pack, like he's sort of like Hollywood royalty. But he died like a pauper in my house, or condo, which is sort of sad, like to have gone from these heights to like literally my kitchen floor, where he did not drop dead, but he did drop and bled until he was found and rushed to Cedars-Sinai Hospital and pronounced dead a week later. So that was his last residence, and he frequents me occasionally, but like I said, it's totally welcome. Yes. Oh, and I love this story. I'm obviously telling it. It's in my new solo show. So I have a new one-woman show that I wrote over the course of the pandemic, got me through. It's called American Horror Story. And Peter's a character. He's in it, and he knows it. He loves attention. He loves that he's in that show. Again, if you're curious about all this, come by the booth. I'll be here for another hour after the panel, and I have those 2 solo shows that are the perfect companion pieces to this next one. This next one, it's hard to say when and where it'll be. It is a theater piece, but nowadays my plan is to sell it to a Netflix or something and have it streaming as a 1-hour comedy special. When I first did those shows, that wasn't a thing, but it is now. So, anyway, that's if you're interested.
I would watch that as a Netflix 1-hour comedy special. What about you guys?
Yeah!
I think we have time for one more question before we have to wrap. Over here on the floor, what you got? Say it real loud for us. What's your favorite blooper?
You mean that someone did on set? So there's not a lot of that going on. In fact, I remember for our Asylum Rap Party, they made a little clip reel of all the bloopers, and I was not even in it. And I even have a friend who works in post, and I was like, seriously? You're not even gonna, no pepper? And he was like, no, you literally never screwed up. You're on point, Naomi. Yeah. So there's not any moment that sticks out as, and besides, everyone's such a pro. Also, that show is so expensive. Every minute costs $1 bazillion. So you don't want to be screwing up on that show. So people don't. But there was a moment, and this isn't exactly a blooper, but there was a prank that Rose once did. Rose, I mentioned before, La Susie. She actually chained up Matt Fraser. Matt Fraser was the Paul, the illustrated seal. She chained up his bicycle so that when he got on it, he was able to just go so far, and then he keeled over and could have really hurt himself, but didn't, and that's what makes it hilarious. Had he gotten hurt, I wouldn't be telling the story, but.
All right, well, that's pretty awesome. So like I said, we've run out of time, but she just said she's going to be at her booth for another hour. So if you want to go get the one-man or one-woman show, you want to go get any photograph signed, any things like that, you definitely want to get back there. You do also want to get over to the Spookala booth because that Corey Taylor exclusive guitar is being raffled off at 3:45 here, right after Miku Hughes' panel. But we'll deal with those things then. Is there anything else you want to say to these awesome
just
fans?
on top of that, I was going to say, I've got some pepper masks that I am not trying to take home. I don't want to take anything home. So take it out my hands. I don't want to check bags. But no, other than that, you guys have been awesome. This is an amazing weekend. Thank you all for coming out. I so appreciate you.
All right, so let's give one big, huge round of applause for Miss Naomi Grossman.